Admiral Chen's shuttle approached the Prometheus, its navigation systems struggling against interference that seemed to emanate from the vessel itself. Through the viewport, she observed how the ship's hull appeared to shift and flow like liquid metal, yet maintained structural integrity, unlike any alloy known to human engineering. "Admiral, we're receiving a direct transmission," her pilot announced, voice tight with tension. "It's bypassing our encryption protocols." A holographic figure materialized in the center of the shuttle, a woman in a uniform 3 centuries out of date. "Admiral Chen, I am Lieutenant Commander Nadia Volkov, Executive Officer of the Prometheus. Captain Reed is expecting you. Please proceed to Docking Bay 3. The Prometheus had no docking bays, Chen replied, gripping her sidearm beneath her jacket. It was an exploration vessel with standard airlocks. Volkov's hologram smiled. "We've made some modifications." As the shuttle approached the designated area, a section of the hull simply opened, not like a conventional bay door, but as if the molecular structure of the ship had decided to create an entrance on demand. Inside, artificial gravity shifted subtly, making Chen's steps feel unnaturally light as she disembarked alone, against all safety protocols. The interior defied explanation. Corridors seemed to extend beyond the physical dimensions of the ship, with walls that pulsed with soft bioluminescence. Chen realized with a start that the ship wasn't just responding to its crew. It was alive in some fundamental way. "Remarkable, isn't it?" A voice echoed from ahead. Captain Malcolm Reed appeared from around a curving corridor, looking barely 40 despite being chronologically over 300 years old. The architects don't distinguish between biological and mechanical systems. To them, it's all just information arranged in different patterns. Chen maintained her composure despite her racing heart. "And what pattern am I looking at, Captain?" "The future of humanity, Admiral." Reed gestured, and a section of wall dissolved, revealing a chamber where crew members floated in transparent pods filled with luminescent fluid. Or one possible future, at least. "Are they alive?" Chen asked, watching one woman's eyes track her movement while her body remained suspended. "More alive than anyone on Earth," Reed replied. "They're communing directly with the ship's consciousness. We take turns. Too much exposure can be overwhelming for minds not fully adapted." Before Chen could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A crewman ran toward them, his movements too fluid to be entirely human. "Captain, we've detected Sorelian probe signatures at the Kuiper Belt boundary. They found us faster than predicted." Reed's expression darkened. "How long?" 72 hours until the scout ships reach Earth orbit." Chen stepped forward. "What are these Sorelians, and why should I believe a word you're saying?" Reed touched the nearby wall, which responded by creating a viewing portal to deep space. "Because in 3 days, Admiral, those will appear above your planet." The image showed massive vessels shaped like crystalline spires, surrounded by energy fields that bent starlight around them. "And when they do," Reed continued, "humanity will face a choice, evolve or perish." The Prometheus didn't just come back with technology, Admiral. We came back with a warning. The universe is far more dangerous than humanity has been led to believe, and far more wondrous. The question is, are you ready to see it as it truly is? Eliza stared at her ancestor, searching for any trace of the man from family stories. The brilliant scientist with a penchant for classical music and terrible jokes. Instead, she faced someone with her great-great-grandfather's face, but eyes that seemed to perceive something beyond the visible spectrum. "You chose." Eliza's voice cracked. "You had that power and you chose to abandon your family." Julian Santos' expression shifted subtly, displaying what might have been the first genuine emotion since their reunion. "No choice is without cost. I watched 1,000 timelines where I returned to Earth immediately after our encounter with the architects. In each one, humanity rejected the warning, called us madmen or charlatans. And in each one, the Sorelians arrived while we were still arguing about whether they existed. He guided her through a section of the Prometheus where the walls displayed what appeared to be mathematical equations that continuously solved and rewrote themselves. "This is the ship's predictive engine," Julian explained. "It calculates probability waves across multiple realities. The architects taught us to read them." Eliza, despite her resentment, couldn't suppress her scientific curiosity. "These equations, they're solving quantum uncertainties deterministically. That's theoretically impossible. Theory is a product of limited perception." Julian touched one of the flowing equations, freezing it mid-calculation. "Look closer. The mathematics you recognize is just the surface layer." As Eliza studied the equation, she realized it contained dimensions of calculation beyond standard human mathematics, not just solving for position or momentum, but for quantum probability itself. "The architects showed us that reality is written in a language humanity has only begun to decipher," Julian continued. "They exist across all potential states simultaneously. For them, time and probability are simply different coordinates in the same space." Before Eliza could respond, Captain Reed entered with Admiral Chen. The tension between them was palpable. "Dr. Santos," Reed addressed Eliza formally, ignoring the family reunion. "I need your expertise. The Corellians have accelerated their approach. Our predictive engine shows them deploying quantum disruptors near Jupiter's orbit within 12 hours. Why her?" Chen demanded. "She's a theoretical physicist with no military clearance." Reed's gaze shifted between the two women. "Because in 63% of potential timelines, Dr. Santos successfully integrates with architect technology without losing her human perspective. We need that balance now more than ever." Julian placed a hand on his descendant's shoulder. "Eliza has the Santos intuition, the ability to see connections where others see only chaos. I had it too. It's why the architects could communicate with me when the rest of the original crew perceived only noise." Eliza pulled away from his touch. "You don't get to make decisions for me. Not after 300 years of absence. The transformation is voluntary," Reed assured her. "But you should know that in every timeline where humanity survives, you play a pivotal role." Chen stepped between them. "We haven't confirmed any of your claims about these Corellians. I need proof before I allow civilians to be subjected to alien technology." Reed's expression darkened. "You'll have your proof soon enough, Admiral. But by then, it may be too late for Dr. Santos to complete the integration process before the attack begins." A low vibration ran through the ship. Julian's eyes widened. "They've changed course again. The scout ships will reach Jupiter in 3 hours, not 12. "How is that possible?" Chen demanded. "Because they're not just following us," Reed replied grimly. "They're hunting us. The Prometheus carries architect essence, and to the Corellians, that makes us the ultimate abomination, a human-architect hybrid." Eliza looked between these people who offered salvation with one hand while upending her understanding of reality with the other. "What exactly would I become if I agree to this integration?" "That," Julian said softly, "is the question none of us can answer for you. Each integration is unique. The only certainty is that you won't be the same." The Arcturian diplomat trembled visibly as he approached the emergency council. His normally iridescent skin had dulled to an ashen gray, and the translator embedded in his thorax struggled to convert his rapid speech patterns. "We were given no choice," the Arcturian, Ambassador Clovan, said. "The Corellians approached our system 8 centuries ago. They demonstrated their power by converting one of our moons into a miniature star. They offered a simple arrangement: identify promising species for processing or face extinction." General Tashiro slammed his fist on the conference table. "And Earth's alliance with your people. The technology exchanges, the defense treaties, all lies." "Not lies," Colvan's translator rendered in a monotone that belied his distress. "Half-truths. We gave you functional technology, but never our most advanced innovations. The Corellians wouldn't allow it." The projection of the incoming Corellian scout ship hung above the table, a crystalline structure that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, its surface covered with geometric patterns that periodically rearranged themselves. Dr. Santos studied the anomalous readings from the vessel. These energy signatures, they don't conform to any known physics. It's as if parts of the ship exist in different dimensions simultaneously. Captain Reed nodded. The Xorelians were created to fight the architects. They employ similar multidimensional technologies but twisted to destructive purposes. A junior officer burst into the chamber, her face pale. We've lost contact with the Ta City colony. All 37 million inhabitants, just gone. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Chen turned to the Arcturian ambassador. How many other species have been processed in this manner? Clovon's translator emitted a high-pitched whine before stabilizing. 17 that we know of. Some were eliminated entirely. Others were reduced to pre-industrial states and quarantined. Reed activated a holographic interface that sprouted from his palm like luminescent vines. Show them, Ambassador. Show them what your people have been hiding. The Arcturian hesitated before removing a crystalline device from within his robes. When connected to the conference table systems, it projected a three-dimensional star map of the galaxy. Hundreds of systems glowed red. The red markers indicate civilizations eliminated or reduced by Xorelian intervention, Clovon explained. The yellow markers are those currently under observation. Earth's star system pulsed yellow, along with a dozen others scattered throughout the galaxy. And the green? Dr. Santos asked, pointing to a smaller number of systems clustered near the galactic core. Processing centers, Clovon replied, voice dropping, where they take samples from species deemed worthy of preservation before elimination. General Tashiro's expression hardened. Samples? You mean they collect specimens? Not just biological samples, Reed interjected. They harvest cultural data, technology, genetic material, everything needed to recreate a species if desired. The Xorelians don't see themselves as destroyers but as archivists, preserving what they consider valuable while eliminating perceived contamination. A secondary alert sounded. The Xorelian scout ship had changed course, accelerating toward Earth rather than Ta City. They've detected the Prometheus, Reed said grimly. We've just moved to primary target status. Ambassador Clovon began backing toward the exit. My government recalls me immediately. Our treaty requires us to withdraw diplomatic presence when a species enters final processing stage. Admiral Chen blocked his path. You're not going anywhere, Ambassador. Your people helped create this situation. You'll help us survive it. The Arcturian's skin rippled with emotion. You don't understand. No species has ever survived Xorelian processing once it begins. The fact that they sent their harvester ships first means they've already decided your fate. Dr. Santos approached the star map, studying the pattern of eliminated civilizations. There's something else here. The eliminated systems form a pattern. They're creating a buffer zone around something at the galactic core. Reed nodded slowly. Very observant, Doctor. Now you're beginning to see the larger conflict. This isn't just about humanity. It's about what lies at the center of the galaxy, something the Xorelians will destroy any civilization to protect. The integration chamber aboard the Prometheus hummed with energy as Dr. Santos prepared for transformation. Unlike the horrific public demonstration that had turned much of humanity against architect technology, this procedure would be conducted under Julian's direct supervision. The difference between success and catastrophic failure is mental state. Julian explained, adjusting translucent conduits that would channel the architect essence. Lieutenant Mercer fought the process. His fear and resistance created incompatible neural pathways. Eliza lay on the reclined chair, medical sensors mapping her brain activity in real time. And what should I be thinking about? Happy thoughts. Julian's expression remained serious. Think of questions, not answers. The architects exist in a perpetual state of inquiry. They value the pursuit of knowledge above all else. That's why they were drawn to humanity. our endless curiosity despite our limited perspective. Reed entered the chamber, accompanied by Admiral Chen. The Xorelian scout ship has bypassed Jupiter's defenses without engaging. They're analyzing rather than attacking. Cataloging our capabilities, Julian confirmed. Standard procedure before processing. Eliza noticed Chen's skeptical expression. Still think we're lying, Admiral. I think we're out of options, Chen replied grimly. The Security Council has authorized 500 volunteers for transformation. If your procedure succeeds, you'll oversee their integration. The interface is ready, Julian announced, holding up what appeared to be a simple circlet of liquid metal. Once placed, it will adapt to your neural architecture. As the circlet touched Eliza's forehead, it flowed like quicksilver, forming delicate filaments that painlessly penetrated her scalp. The sensation began as a gentle pressure, then expanded into something indescribable, as if her consciousness were stretching beyond her physical form. Colors she had no names for flooded her perception. Mathematical principles appeared as tangible objects she could manipulate with thought alone. Most disorienting of all, she could perceive time as a dimension she could observe in multiple directions simultaneously. Through the haze of transformation, she heard alarms and urgent voices. Julian was arguing with someone. Reed? Chen. The words seemed trivial compared to the vast understanding unfolding in her mind. The Xorelians have deployed quantum disruptors in orbit. Reed's voice penetrated her altered consciousness. They're targeting the integration chambers specifically. Julian's response came from seemingly infinite distance. She's at the critical phase. Interrupting now would be catastrophic. Eliza tried to speak, but couldn't connect to her physical form. Instead, she reached out with her expanding awareness, touching the ship's systems directly with her mind. Suddenly, she could see the Xorelian scout ship through the Prometheus' sensors, not just its physical form, but the probability waves surrounding it, the quantum fluctuations that preceded its movements. With an intuitive gesture that felt as natural as breathing, she adjusted the Prometheus' defensive fields, creating a counter-resonance to the Xorelian attack. The disruptor beams bent harmlessly away from the ship. As the integration completed, Eliza gasped back to physical awareness. The room stared at her in shock. How did you do that? Reed demanded. You shouldn't be able to interface with ship systems without training. Eliza examined her hands, which now occasionally flickered with trace patterns of luminescent energy. I saw the attack pattern, not just what it was doing, but what it was going to do before it happened. Julian helped her sit up, his expression caught between pride and concern. The Santos intuition. It's amplified the connection beyond our predictions. A medical officer approached with scanning equipment. Her neural architecture has reorganized at an unprecedented rate. The integration is complete, but they hesitated. But what? Chen demanded. But I'm not fully human anymore, Eliza finished, standing shakily. And I'm not whatever the Prometheus crew has become either. She turned to Julian. I can see the patterns now. The architects, the Xorelians, they're both trapped in their own paradigms. Humanity doesn't have to choose between them. Reed's expression darkened. What are you saying? I'm saying there's a third path, Eliza replied, her eyes momentarily shifting to reveal geometric patterns beneath her irises. And I think that's what the architects have been waiting for all along. The battle for Sol unfolded across dimensional layers invisible to conventional sensors. Admiral Chen, commanding the last functioning carrier from a makeshift bridge, watched in horror as her flagship's primary weapons discharged harmlessly against the approaching Xorelian vessels. Energy weapons ineffective, her tactical officer reported, voice strained. Kinetic penetrators being diverted somehow. They're altering the projectile's trajectories before impact. Chen turned to her communication officer. Any word from the transformed squadrons? Scattered reports, Admiral. Destroyer Group 7 briefly penetrated a Xorelian dreadnought's defenses using some kind of phase technology, but we lost contact immediately after. On the tactical display, Mars colony's defense grid winked out section by section as methodical Xorelian beams swept the surface. The colony's million inhabitants had gone silent mid-evacuation. "Admiral," a sensor technician called out, "I'm detecting unusual activity from the Prometheus. It's changing." The view screen showed the already alien vessel contorting into configurations that defied structural analysis. Sections folded into themselves, creating geometries that seemed to intersect impossibly. "They're merging with it," Dr. Sando's voice came from behind Chen. The transformed physicist had transported aboard without using any conventional means, simply appearing on the bridge in a shimmer of displaced space. "What do you mean, merging?" Chen demanded. "The original crew, Reed, my ancestor, all of them. They're becoming one with the ship's consciousness," Eliza explained, her eyes occasionally revealing intricate patterns beneath the irises. "It's the final stage of their transformation." As they watched, the Prometheus phased between multiple points in space simultaneously, appearing as ghostly echoes of itself across the battlefield. The Xorelian command ship, a massive construction that dwarfed even Earth's largest space stations, oriented its primary weapon toward Earth. "Evacuate what you can, Admiral," Eliza said quietly. "I have to join them." "Join who?" "The Prometheus crew." "You can't possibly." But Eliza had already vanished, reappearing instantaneously aboard the Prometheus according to the carrier sensors. The command carrier shuddered as a smaller Xorelian vessel targeted it directly. Damage reports flooded in from all decks. "Admiral," the tactical officer called out, "the Xorelian command ship is powering their main weapon array. Energy readings suggest it could penetrate Earth's crust." Chen watched helplessly as the massive weapon charge, a gathering storm of exotic particles that conventional physics couldn't explain. She had failed humanity. Failed utterly. The beam discharge, a blinding column of energy that should have spelled Earth's doom. Instead, the Prometheus materialized directly in its path, its reconfigured form spreading out like a vast net of luminescent energy. The impossible happened. The Prometheus didn't just survive the impact, it absorbed the energy entirely, its hull pulsing with stolen power. What followed defied description. The Prometheus seemed to multiply, existing at all points in the battlefield simultaneously. 15 Xorelian capital ships simply vanished, not destroyed but removed from reality itself. The remaining Xorelian vessels immediately broke formation, retreating to the outer system, but not before broadcasting their message across all frequencies. The Architect abomination spreads. The cleansing will escalate. As the battle subsided, Chen received an unexpected communication from the transformed Prometheus. "Admiral." It was Eliza's voice, but somehow hollow, as if speaking from an immense distance. "I joined with the ship temporarily. There's something you need to understand about the Architects and the Xorelians. This isn't a war of conquest. It's an ideological conflict spanning billions of years." "What does that mean for us?" Chen asked. "It means Earth has become ground zero in a war older than our sun," Eliza replied. "The Xorelians will return with their entire armada. What you just witnessed was merely a scouting force." The Prometheus began reconfiguring again, parts of it shifting back toward conventional geometry as the merged consciousness separated. "There's worse news," Eliza continued. "The transformation process. It's no longer contained. The energy released during the battle has saturated Earth's atmosphere with Architect particles. Anyone with compatible genetics will begin transforming spontaneously within days." Chen felt her blood run cold. "How many?" "Based on genetic markers, approximately 30% of the human population." The Admiral stared at the Earth below, beautiful and oblivious to the fact that its population was about to change forever. "What happens to them?" "That," Eliza replied, "depends entirely on how humanity responds to the change. We can guide the process or fear it, and that choice will determine whether we survive what's coming next." The captured Genesis engine pulsed with impossible energies, its internal geometries shifting constantly within the containment field. Dr. Santos studied it from multiple perceptual angles, her transformed consciousness, allowing her to see beyond its physical manifestation into the underlying principles that governed its operation. "It's not Sorelian technology," she announced to the gathered Vanguard leadership, "nor is it architect in origin. This predates both civilizations." Admiral Chen, herself partially transformed after exposure during the Battle of Sol, frowned. Her left eye now shimmered with quantum calculations visible beneath the iris. "Then whose technology is it?" "I believe it belonged to the precursors, the civilization that created the Xorelians as weapons against the architects." Eliza manipulated the holographic model, expanding sections to reveal intricate structures. "But there's something else. Look at these energy signatures." The patterns flowing through the engine revealed themselves as a complex language, not just code, but a form of consciousness preserved in energy states. "It's alive," General Toshiro said from the doorway. Unlike the others, he remained stubbornly untransformed, wearing a neural dampening device to prevent accidental exposure. "You're telling me that thing is sentient?" "Not exactly," Eliza clarified. "It contains preserved consciousness fragments, like a library of minds. The Xorelians don't just archive biological samples from species they processed. They preserve consciousness patterns." The implication stunned the room into silence. Chen was the first to recover. "Are you saying this device contains the minds of extinct civilizations?" "Portions of them. Cultural keystones. Representative samples." Eliza's fingers traced patterns in the air, interfacing directly with the engine's output. "And I can access them." The engine responded to her gestures, projecting a three-dimensional star map that expanded to encompass the entire command center. Thousands of worlds appeared, each marked with symbols indicating their status. There, Eliza pointed to a cluster near the galactic core, the precursor homeworlds. According to the archived consciousness fragments, they were a species that evolved beyond physical form millions of years ago. They created the Xorelians to protect younger civilizations from architect influence, which they believed would lead to evolutionary stagnation. Toshiro stepped forward, his expression hardening. "And the architects? What's their agenda?" "That's where it gets complicated," Eliza replied. "The architects believe consciousness should evolve beyond physical limitations, becoming beings of pure thought. The precursors believed this path led to eventual extinction and wanted to preserve biological evolution in all its diversity." A communications officer interrupted, her partially transformed features showing stress. "Admiral, we've received disturbing reports from Earth. Transformed humans in major population centers are constructing structures of unknown purpose. They appear to be working in perfect coordination despite having no apparent leadership." Chen turned to Eliza. "Is this your doing?" "No," Eliza replied, her expression troubled. "But I can sense the pattern. It's a response to architect particles bonding with human neural tissue. The transformed are building receiver arrays." "Receivers for what?" Toshiro demanded. Before Eliza could answer, the Genesis engine pulsed dramatically, its containment field fluctuating as it responded to some external stimulus. "They're coming," Eliza whispered. "All of them. The main Xorelian armada has altered course. They are converging on Sol system directly." She manipulated the engine again, focusing its predictive capabilities. A massive fleet appeared in the projection, thousands of vessels arranged in perfect geometric formations. "How long?" Chen asked quietly. 3 months, Eliza replied. "But there's something else." She highlighted an anomalous energy signature at the edge of known space. "This disturbance, it matches architect patterns, but amplified beyond anything we've encountered. I think the architects are responding to the transformation of humanity. They're sending something." "An invasion force?" Toshiro asked. "No," Eliza said, her expression unreadable. "A message, and I believe it's meant for me." The summit of faction leaders on Luna Base had deteriorated into chaos. Representatives from Earth's purest enclaves demanded immediate action against the transformed, while transcendent delegates flickered in and out of conventional perception, their partially ascended forms struggling to maintain physical cohesion in the presence of so much tension. Admiral Chen, now serving as the de facto leader of the Harmonist faction, slammed her palm against the conference table. Enough. The Xorelian Armada is 6 weeks from arrival, and we're fighting amongst ourselves. Tashiro, his neural dampeners now supplemented with additional shielding, gestured to the holographic display of Earth. Nearly 40% of the planet's surface was now covered with the strange architectural formations created by transformed humans, crystalline structures that sometimes phased partially into other dimensions. Those abominations are consuming resources we need for planetary defense, he argued. The Transcendents claim they're not controlling the constructions, yet they continue to spread. Dr. Santos entered the chamber, her physical form now permanently exhibiting traces of her transformation, skin occasionally revealing shifting patterns of light beneath, eyes calculating probabilities visible to anyone with enhanced perception. The structures aren't weapons or defenses, she announced without preamble. They're translators, designed to interpret the approaching architect message into forms comprehensible to different states of consciousness. Captain Reed, appearing as a holographic projection from the Prometheus, nodded. The transformed are acting on instinct, following patterns embedded in the architect particles themselves. It's an evolutionary response. Evolution. Tashiro scoffed. Children manifesting reality-warping abilities isn't evolution. It's an extinction-level threat to baseline humanity. A transcendent representative, Dr. Maya Okafor, her form occasionally dissolving into patterns of light, spoke in a voice that echoed across multiple auditory planes. The temporal bubbles created by transformed children are mathematical expressions of quantum possibility. They're learning to manipulate reality the way ordinary children learn language. Before Tashiro could respond, the chamber's lighting flickered. The Genesis engine, housed in Luna's secure laboratory, had activated autonomously. It's receiving something, Eliza said, her consciousness partially connecting with the device across distance. The architect message, it's arriving sooner than predicted. The summit representatives hurried to the observation deck, watching as Earth's night side bloomed with sudden light. Every translator structure on the planet activated simultaneously, channeling energy in vast, geometric patterns visible from space. They've created a planetary receiver, Reed's hologram commented, fascination evident in his voice. Ingenious. Chen turned to Eliza. What are they receiving? Before she could answer, Reed's hologram dissolved, replaced by an emergency transmission from the Prometheus. Julian Santos appeared, his form now barely recognizable as human. We've detected a Xorelian vanguard force approaching from an unexpected vector, he reported. They're attempting to destroy the receiver before the message completes transmission. On the view screen, objects appeared at the edge of the solar system. Asteroid-sized Xorelian vessels moving at impossible speeds toward Earth. How long until they're in weapons range? Chen demanded. 17 minutes, Julian replied. But that's not our biggest concern. Captain Reed has made a unilateral decision. He's activating the full capabilities of the Prometheus to protect the receiver network. What does that mean? Tashiro asked, suddenly wary. Eliza's expression shifted to alarm. It means he's going to merge the entire transformed crew with the ship permanently, creating a multidimensional entity powerful enough to challenge the Xorelians directly. That's suicide, Chen protested. No, Eliza said quietly. It's ascension. But Reed doesn't understand what he's actually doing. The beacon won't just call the architects. It will merge our dimension with theirs. Earth will be the focal point of a transdimensional collision. Julian's image flickered. Reed believes this is necessary. He's convinced the only way to save humanity is to force an immediate resolution to the ancient conflict. By destroying the solar system in the process, Tashiro demanded. He sees it as transcendence, not destruction, Julian replied. But Eliza's right. There's another way. All eyes turned to Eliza. "I need access to the Genesis engine," she said with sudden determination. "The precursors built it as a means to preserve consciousness across dimensional boundaries. If I can reconfigure it, we might be able to receive the architect message without destroying our reality in the process." "And read?" Chen asked. "Someone needs to buy us time against the Xorelian vanguard," Eliza replied grimly. "Let's just hope there's enough humanity left in him to recognize when to stop." Earth's skies darkened with Xorelian warships, their crystalline forms refracting sunlight into eerie patterns across the planet's surface. In orbit, the remnants of humanity's defense fleet maintained formation, a symbolic gesture of defiance against overwhelming odds. Deep beneath Luna's surface, Dr. Santos worked feverishly with the Genesis engine, her transformed consciousness interfacing directly with its ancient systems. Admiral Chen and representatives from all three human factions observed from behind quantum-shielded barriers. "The engine's core contains pure information state matter," Eliza explained, her voice resonating across multiple perceptual planes simultaneously. "The precursors designed it to preserve consciousness patterns across dimensional boundaries. And you believe you can repurpose it?" Chen asked, her partially transformed perceptions allowing her to follow some, but not all, of Eliza's manipulations. "Not repurpose, reveal its true function." Eliza's hands danced through holographic interfaces that responded to her thoughts more than her movements. "The Xorelians have been using it as a preservation device, but it was designed as a bridge." On the tactical displays, the Prometheus engaged the Xorelian vanguard near Mars orbit. The ship had transformed beyond recognition, appearing as a constantly shifting constellation of energy and matter, phasing between dimensions with impossible grace. Xorelian vessels that ventured too close simply ceased to exist, removed from reality by forces beyond conventional understanding. "Reed has fully merged with the ship," Julian Santos reported, his projection appearing beside Eliza. "The process has accelerated beyond predicted parameters. He's becoming something other." Toshiro studied the battle data with growing concern. "The Prometheus is winning, but at what cost? Sensors indicate its energy signature is becoming unstable. Reed's consciousness is being overwhelmed by architect patterns," Eliza confirmed without looking up from her work. "He's losing his humanity faster than anticipated." A sudden alarm blared throughout the facility. The primary Xorelian armada had arrived ahead of schedule, thousands of vessels emerging from dimensional folds near Jupiter. "We're out of time," Chen declared. "Whatever you're planning, Dr. Santos, it needs to happen now." Eliza nodded, making a final adjustment to the Genesis engine. Its pulsing core stabilized, then began emitting a resonant harmonic that permeated the chamber. "I need representatives from each human faction to join me. The engine requires a consensus consciousness to function properly." Chen stepped forward without hesitation. After a moment's reluctance, Toshiro removed his neural dampeners and joined her. Dr. Okafor, representing the Transcendence, completed the triangle around the engine. "What exactly will this do?" Toshiro asked, his expression betraying both fear and determination. "It will allow us to receive the architect message without dimensional collapse," Eliza explained. "But more importantly, it will broadcast our response, humanity's unique perspective on the ancient conflict." As they placed their hands on the designated interfaces, the Genesis engine's core expanded, enveloping them in a field of pure information. Their consciousness, purest, harmonist, and transcendent, merged temporarily within the engine's matrix. In that moment of connection, every human mind across 12 star systems experienced a singular awareness. They'd witnessed the multiverse through unified perception, the endless iterations of reality, where civilizations rose and fell, where architects and precursors waged their eternal philosophical war. But more importantly, they saw why humanity had been chosen. Unlike other species encountered by either the architects or precursors, humans possessed a unique adaptability, the capacity to embrace transformation while maintaining core identity, to evolve without losing perspective. Aboard the Prometheus, Reed felt the connection shudder through his merged consciousness. The ship paused mid-battle, its offensive systems temporarily dormant as understanding bloomed within its composite mind. The Xorelian Armada likewise hesitated, their unified directive momentarily disrupted by the unprecedented signal emanating from the Genesis engine. Through this universal moment of clarity, Eliza broadcast humanity's answer to both ancient forces, not a surrender to either evolutionary path, but the creation of a third option. The capacity to transform while remembering, to transcend while remaining connected to origins, to evolve without discarding the wisdom of limitation. As the connection faded, the Genesis engine's core contracted, releasing the three representatives. On the tactical displays, something remarkable occurred. The Prometheus began reverting to a more recognizable form, while the Xorelian vessels reoriented into a non-aggressive formation. "What's happening?" Chen asked, her consciousness still reeling from the experience. Eliza smiled, exhaustion evident beneath her transformed features. "We've given them a choice they've never had before, a path beyond their ancient programming." "Both sides?" Tashiro asked incredulously. "Both sides," Eliza confirmed. "For billions of years, they've been locked in a binary conflict. We've just introduced the concept of synthesis." Beyond Luna, the first communication from the Xorelian command ship arrived. Not a threat, but a request for further information. And from the Prometheus, Captain Reed's voice, more human than it had been in weeks. "You were right, Eliza. There was another way all along."